Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard.
Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today, friends, we're having a guest we've had on the podcast before. He was interesting the first time, and I trust he'll be interesting the second time. His name is Mike, and he's running for president under the Libertarian Party ticket. So welcome again to the podcast, Mike. Welcome back.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a great joy to be with you. The campaign has been progressing. I would argue it's even accelerating, so it's an exciting time for us and for the race.
Perfect. We plan to talk about that. We'd love to hear about that. So kindly tell us your first and last name first. I mentioned your first name, so our audience is familiar with you.
Sure. Last name is ter Maat. It's Mike ter Maat. Last name is Termaat. So anyone in your audience who needs more information can go to one of our websites, including MikeTerMaat.com, MikeTerMaat.com.
All right. Now, before we get into what you've been doing recently, we did interview in the past, like I mentioned, and I plan to put in the show notes, the link if I can find it. So we don't want to talk about everything we talked about then. If you can briefly, if somebody's hearing you for the first time and they never heard you, can you give a brief background sketch so that they can have some familiarity with you?
Sure, I appreciate that. As you know, I'm seeking the Libertarian Party presidential nomination. We have a great team in place that was not in place, at least not completely, last time you and I spoke. We've got 14 paid professionals on staff.
Wow.
A couple of whom are full-time, the rest are part-time and lightly paid. We have a dozen people on a volunteer advisory panel beyond that, and then beyond that we have quite a few volunteers who are conducting outreach on behalf of the campaign. So we're pretty excited about that. Dennis Consorte is our e-campaign manager.
Oh.
He has run campaigns before for Larry Sharp, for example, and is a very high-end kind of guy. So we're very excited to have him on board. We have Gabby Cordova, who used to be a full-time member of the Libertarian National Committee staff. She is full-time with us, and we're very, very excited about that. And the fellow that ran outreach and social media for us for the congressional campaign 2 years ago, Evan Murphy, is on board, and he's virtually full-time as well. So it's exciting to have those people on, as well as a whole bunch of people who are part-time. So that's a very exciting prospect. And, of course, the amount of attention that we've been getting has been very exciting. You know, virtually every day we're on a program like yours or another one, which is very important. And, of course, we're going to all of the Libertarian Party state conventions. This weekend we'll be in Ohio for a 4-state conference, including the LP affiliates in Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and Kentucky. So that's pretty exciting stuff.
Yes. So how did you get these campaign workers? Did you recruit them yourself? Were you proactive? Did they come to you through interest in your website? How did you get them on board?
It's a mix. A lot of people have reached out to us wanting to play one role or another. Sometimes people make a donation. Sometimes they go to the website and fill out the volunteer form. Sometimes It's people we know from the congressional campaign, and sometimes it's people that were recommended to us. Dennis, for example, was someone that I had known to be a part of Larry's campaign, and I'm close to Larry, so that was a natural connection. And similarly for Gabby, knowing the role that she had played with the LNC, she was a natural person to go after. So it's a bit of a hodgepodge in terms of how people come to us. But as far as all of the paid people, we went after them. People do come to us in terms of wanting to volunteer, and some of those people we'll go after to try to turn them into paid staff. but everyone who's on the paid staff are people that we went after. And of course, part of it, as you know, Andrew, and when we started, it was an explicit piece of our strategy to develop a very, very professional team and a very professional campaign.
Sure.
Personally, having a background in public policy and public service and having had some professional experience in presidential politics going back to 1992, which is a long time ago, it was a real important element of our strategy to develop a professional team. So we've taken this very seriously and gone after it very hard. And I think that when we reach out to people in that context, they're happy and excited to play a role because they know they're joining a team that's going to take their effort seriously and takes this race and this campaign very seriously. We believe that we are well positioned to play a major role in American politics as soon as we secure the nomination in May, and we're gearing up
coming up
to do that. Yeah, so it's 10 months away, but that 10-month period is going to go by pretty darn fast. So we believe
Sure.
that we need to be getting ready in advance.
So what are you learning on the campaign trail since you started? Since we talked to you last, what lessons have you been learning and how are you making changes based on those learning experiences?
Yeah, one thing that we have learned is that there absolutely is no substitute for being with people in person. The opportunity to be at the state conventions, local county meetings, these are the most important vehicles for us by far. There absolutely is no substitute. The next thing we learned is that personal contact, whether it's over the phone or through email, but personal contact with someone on our team reaching out to an individual or between me and an individual, these are real important contacts. That is not to say that media, social media, earned media, paid media don't have their role and aren't important. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there is no substitute for personal contact. We have found that to be true in terms of building relationships, but we've also found it to be true in terms of collecting feedback. This is the way that we learn what is on people's minds, what are their concerns, what issues are hot, and perhaps just as importantly as anything, where our challenges and opportunities are going to be. So we find that there's absolutely no substitute for personal contact.
That's a good lesson to learn. And now since the pandemic is over officially, it is a good opportunity for you to seize it 100%.
I believe that's true. You know, it's interesting. The pandemic is over, and some of the fears and some of the concerns related to the pandemic are behind us, both in terms of worrying, so many people have stopped worrying about the government either forcing you to be vaccinated or shutting down your business, and people's fears have waned regarding the disease itself. However, the lessons that we learned there remain just as important, and I believe will actually be even more important going forward in the future as we face other large challenges in terms of public policy. Okay. I think that, when you look forward to something like climate change, it really coincides, how you feel about climate change coincides with how you feel about the pandemic in terms of how much authority, how much power you want to allow to your government. Now that we have seen that our government is willing to go to any length to control a situation, irrespective of the Constitution, irrespective of what they believe courts will rule, we have seen that the executive branch of the federal government is willing to assume tremendous power to itself. And I
Okay.
think that bearing that in mind should make us all fearful about what our government is likely to do in the future about such topics as climate change. So
All right.
we're very concerned about that set of issues and think it represents an important avenue for us to communicate with Americans.
So since you're on the trail now, and as we've been talking about, you're meeting a lot of new people because of the situations and because of your campaign in general, what are the people saying to you?
People seem to be open to a libertarian message more than ever before
That's good.
outside of the Libertarian Party.
Oh.
And inside the Libertarian Party, people want bold, committed, principled lead. They want a platform that leads with principles, that is true to the most transformational libertarian ideas. In that sense, people like the idea of what we call the Gold New Deal, our platform, which, you know, your folks can go read about at goldnewdeal.org. The Gold New Deal is our branded platform of the most transformational and most principled libertarian ideas. People like that idea because it reflects their frustrations with prior campaigns that have represented the Libertarian Party. People don't want to go backwards in that sense. We believe that the right strategy in terms of getting attention and the right thing to do in terms of spreading libertarian ideas is to lead with a very principled message. People are very comfortable with the idea of an uncompromising set of messages.
Okay.
Remember, it's our attitude that it's our job to cleave hard edges against Democratic and Republican politicians. We're not trying to find common ground with them. Yes, we're trying to find common ground with Republican and Democratic voters, but not with their politicians. We want to completely differentiate ourselves from other politicians and other parties. We believe that this is the correct way to spread our message, but it's also the best way to get as much attention as possible from the media, from donors, and from potential voters.
So given what you just said, it sounds like you have had a consistent focus, a consistent theme, and a consistent set of ethics. So is there anything that, policy-wise, you've had to adapt as the campaign has progressed?
I don't think that we've had to adapt policy in terms of changing the policy, but it is true that we have been able to figure out, what our strongest winning messages are. Inside the party, people are very open to our anti-war message. People are extraordinarily open to our attitude of exiting both Ukraine and ultimately NATO. People are very much open to our message of avoiding conflict with China, straightening out our strategic ambiguity over Taiwan and making it clear that it's not in the interest of the United States to fight a war over Taiwan. We've learned that set of foreign policy issues is real important to people inside the Libertarian Party. So, that was actually heartening to see that these positions and the policies generally are winners inside of our party. We've also learned that people don't want us to back down from the notion of, for example, ending the Federal Reserve System and replacing it with a rules-based system. We thought that this would be something that might cause us some problems because of the complexity of the policy, but people are very, very enthusiastic about it. Similarly, people have rallied around our position that we need police reform as opposed to simply back the blue, which is what a lot of Republicans and other people on the right would say, or defund the police or, anti-cop. which is where a lot of Democrats and people on the left are, we have seen that people are very enthusiastic about the idea of police reform as a piece of overall criminal justice reform. So those kinds of things have really worked out very well. We'll see as time goes on whether those remain hot button issues or whether they're replaced by other things. I do expect economic issues to continue to be important, and my own personal expectation, we'll see, right? But my own personal expectation is that economic issues will really come to the fore starting early next year as the presidential race heats up with the other parties. I think that economic issues will float to the top just based on past experience. It seems like they always do.
Okay. So as the campaign is progressing, and we talked about, you mentioned some members of your team, we talked earlier about your team. How is your team structured and how are they organized to leverage all the gifts and talents in your campaign?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Everyone is fairly independent in the sense that, everyone's got to do quite a bit of lifting on their own without being micromanaged on an hour-to-hour basis. So it really requires that everyone on the team be, a professional, freestanding human adult, right? And that works out pretty well. We've got, for example, 6 people making phone calls to interface with volunteers, to interface with affiliates, to interface with the planners and managers of conventions out there. They are largely on their own. They do report to me and to Dennis, but each one knows that he or she is an independent operator. So we've got that group of people, and then we've got 3 more on sort of a social media squad. We've got a couple more people who help manage the website. We've also got an outside contractor who builds websites for us. We have 2 websites, the MikeTerMaat.com site as well as the GoldNewDeal.org site, and we will be launching a 3rd site in probably a month that I would love to tell you about, but I can't quite yet, but I'll drop you a line when we do. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that we are in the process of collecting essays for a book that we will title Gold New Deal that'll be coming out probably a month or so from now as well. And it'll be all about different perspectives on why we believe that we need a new relationship between us and our government. That's a little project about which we are very, very excited, particularly because we've got really interesting people participating in that book. Spike Cohen is going to write a foreword. Larry Sharp is going to conduct an interview, the transcript of which we will include. We've got Max Border, an important author in the libertarian space, who is contributing an essay, and a half a dozen other individuals. So it's an exciting project and not an insignificant project, getting a book out the door.
Yes.
So it's something that we're excited about and look forward to launching in a month.
Okay, so Gold New Deal, that's a play on the Green New Deal, right?
It is. We're poking fun of the original New Deal of Franklin Roosevelt. We're poking a little bit of fun at the Green New Deal of AOC. We believe that we do need, just like those other ideas, a new relationship between us and our government, but we believe that we need to go in the other direction. Those ideas were building government bigger, expanding its power, expanding both its size and scope. We believe that we need to go in the other direction. We need to put as much government back in the bottle as possible. The flagship of the Gold New Deal is the idea of a constitutional amendment which would allow individual states to opt out of federal supremacy. that would allow individual states to resolve conflicts between state legislation and federal legislation unilaterally in state court. And so this would give them a vehicle toward nullification. We believe that is extremely important in terms of decentralizing power. We believe the federal government has gotten far too big and too powerful and needs to be reined in. We believe that we're living in what could arguably be characterized as a post-constitutional America.
Oh my.
And for that reason, we really believe that we do need a new relationship between us and the government. That's what the Gold New Deal is all about.
And gold is the color for the Libertarian Party, right?
Exactly. So that's where gold comes from. It's not about the gold standard, although a piece of it is to harden our currency and replace the Federal Reserve System with a rules-based system, which is a step toward the gold standard. So in that case, it's sort of a double entendre, but it's really about the color of the Libertarian Party. We recognize that our party is going to have to play a lead in terms of fighting our way back to the Constitution, that it is not true that a Republican or a Democrat that we see on the horizon is likely to play a significant role in leading us back to the Constitution. I don't think that Republicans are any longer tied to the Constitution. I would say the same thing about Democrats. And so in that sense, Libertarians, who are correctly viewed as the philosophical descendants of the people that founded this country, the people that wrote the Declaration of Independence, the people who put together our Constitution, Libertarians have not only an opportunity to play a big role in 2024, I believe that we have an obligation to play a big role in 2024 to lead the fight back toward the Constitution.
All right. So, Mike, how can our listeners support you in your campaign?
They should go to one of our two websites. They should either go to goldnewdeal.org or to MikeTerMaat.com. You'd have to spell Termaat right with two A's. Go to either one. They link back and forth. You will see my personal contact information there. You will see a place to donate funds. We would be very grateful if anyone wanted to play a role that way. You will see a way to sign up to volunteer, and someone will call you, and you can explore what opportunities that there may be. Or you can reach out to me personally and directly, particularly if you have a question about policy, if you have advice, suggestions, you want to complain about something, you want us to know that you think that we're on the wrong path regarding something in particular, or the right path regarding something in particular, you can reach out to me personally with the contact information posted on those websites.
Perfect. Mike, thank you for coming on the podcast again. Thank you for coming back. We appreciate listening to your campaign tales.
It's great to be with you any time whatsoever. Maybe next year we can do it again. It's a great joy to be with you every time. Thanks a lot.
All right. All the best to you and your campaign.
You too. Have a great day.
Bye now.